Bro, we have reached a new level of professionalism here on Vitruvian 5000. I've been talking about it, that I was going to have my studio set up, and now I finally got my studio set up.
Nice. Fixed position. That's beautiful.
Fixed position. I'm getting it. Yeah. I actually need to get something behind me, a background. Yeah. I have this great collage of that I made because all the shit that I love, and it's got like this big thing of the image of Jimi Hendrix from Axis. I think it was Axis Bold as Love.
Yeah,
the album, and or Bold as Love, whatever it was, and it's got Iron Maiden and Black Sabbath and Bruce Lee and all this crazy shit.
Nice. The trippy collection.
In my heart, I am still 12 years old. I told you that when I bought my latest guitar, it was like, that was a gift from my 12-year-old self. I'm still 12 years old. So, and I'm ready to admit it.
I think we all are, man. I think we all are. I think that it's just like, the headset doesn't change, man.
No. And do you feel like, you still feel like, 12 years old, man. I'm still young. I'm sure I've even heard like 80-year-olds say that. And it's like, yeah, good. Embrace it. Yeah,
but I don't like, go ahead.
No, good.
People, you joke sometimes like, oh, I'm getting old, but like, I very rarely feel that. Like, very rarely do I feel like, oh shit, I'm old. You know what I mean? Like, I guess again, I don't feel like that a lot. I don't either. The only time I bring it up is like when I beat someone who's a lot younger than me in Jiu-Jitsu. And I'm I'm 56 years old, motherfucker, right? Yeah.
I rub it in, man. I don't give a shit.
I like that.
But I was training last night. So for my studio appearance, I was like, all right, I'm going to look good for my studio appearance. And I freaking almost broke my nose again last night, man. It's really crazy. Yeah, dude, I think, and I was going against another wrestler. And so when I started jiu-jitsu,
were you standing?
I would say, I don't think so. I think I was playing guard, but last night I wrestled a lot. I did a lot of wrestling. I was working on a lot of collar ties and just a lot of wrestling. I want to get ready for Nogi World. So I'm just really hitting the wrestling.
So when you're doing stand-up rounds, it's always dicey. Like if shit goes wrong for stand-up rounds, because it's just, you fall the wrong way or the intensity turns up and it just, but I mean, standing rounds wrestling that's when it's the most exciting and the most like, all right, we're fighting now. We're fighting,
but I mean, the reality is that for me, I'll go and I'll exchange with somebody like starting wrestling and I'll do it for a minute, but because of competition, like I don't want to get stuck there. So if I can't get anything going, then I pull guard, I always pull guard.
Don't have my takedowns are shit, but my takedown defense is pretty good. So I'll go in and I'll try to bait the takedown. But then sometimes like that creates a stalemate kind of thing. And then I guess I'll pull guard. But
so for me, I'm not necessarily doing takedowns. I'm more like what we worked on last night was a lot of arm drags and snap downs and getting around to the back with different techniques, Russian 2-on-1. I'll Russian 2-on-1. I learned this from Mateus Denise at Marcelo Garcia's like 6 months ago. Russian 2-on-1, and then hold that elbow and then shove that wrist into their chest and pull guard.
Okay.
And then keep that grip as I pull guard.
That's cool.
Mm-hmm. I really like that. That's a really good one.
I do a lot of snap downs. I like the snap down.
I love snap downs. Aren't they the best, man?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So, it's really funny. So we've talked about this before. It's, talking about like staying young and feeling young. It's it's such an interesting thing because, you and I both are big on our hobbies, right? With music, I play music, you play music. That's playing. We're playing like kids. And jiu-jitsu, you play like kids, man.
Yeah.
How important do you think that is to you, to your overall mental well-being and all?
I think it's essential. I think like you gotta have stuff like that in your life. You see such a drastic, like, people in your life that don't do anything like that. And I would, I'd go out on a limb and say for the most part, a lot of those guys are pretty miserable and not happy. You know what I mean? Let alone they don't look good and they don't feel good. But yeah, I just feel like you have this energy and you got to get it out in playful ways. And then, the benefits and everything are all kind of bonus. Like, that you look good, you feel good, you stay in shape, but I just feel like on the most basic level, like at least myself, you know what I mean? Like I can't speak for anybody else, but I know that other people feel similar. So I got a lot of energy, there's just a lot of energy moving through me all of the time, and it's got to go somewhere. And doing these things that are playful in nature, that are physical, it's just good. It's I don't know. I couldn't imagine living any other way at this point.
Yeah, for me, it's until that energy dissipates. This is a really good subject because, we talk about emotions and emotional well-being. There's a lot of talk about that in society now, and trauma and all these things. But I really more am interested in the depth, like the way that I see it, the paradigm that I see it is it all just energy. Like we're energetic beings, right? So the quantum field at the lowest level of everything, it's quantum field theory. It's just like it's all just vibrational fields. That's all it is.
Yep.
And so that's what we are. Music, when you strum a guitar, or a piano keys, they're hitting strings. It's all just vibrations, sound vibrations. And so for me, I think you really hit on it, where until I dissipate that energy that builds up, I don't feel good. And after I dissipate that energy, after it's gone, I feel great. It's that simple. If I'm not having a good day, I need to go, and so jiu-jitsu for me is my preferred method of energy dissipation, right?
Sure.
But because for me, my mind, I can't run. Like I can't, the tedium of doing anything or even swimming. And I'm a swimming fanatic. I'm a surfer. But for me to sit there and do something repetitive and just doing laps or rounds or not rounds. I don't
have the attention span for it.
I do not have it. Yeah. So for me, but I guess everyone's different. You got to figure out though, what is it that this energy that is bottled up inside of you, how do you dissipate that and get back down? So when people talk about, nervous system dysregulation and then re-regulating their nervous system, for me, it's really about too much energy bottled up that I'm interpreting emotionally, either as, can be whatever, anxiety, whatever, but it's this buzzy feeling. And that's what to me anxiety is. And if it goes too long and you don't address it, then your body starts to shut down and that becomes depression.
Well, I got a real world example of something that I have just been going through. So I go to the dentist pretty regularly. I go every 3 months, and they're always telling me that like I grind my teeth, but it kind of like I grind my teeth at night while I sleep. And sometimes like it's happening and it's on and off but like sometimes, and right now I got a lot of balls in the air. I got some issues going on at home and, so I think like my anxiety, my stress level is higher than normal right now. And I've been noticing for like a couple of months that like when I wake up in the morning, like my I'm sore, because I'm grinding and I feel it. And last weekend, I was in my backyard, I was smoking a cigar. I think I had 2 short tequilas and I drank some weed water, the THC fucking seltzers. And like small,
you were on the train to head to somewhere good, right?
Yeah. But I mean, I can do vastly larger quantities than what I consumed that day, right? And so pretty quickly I felt like fucking loopy and I thought that maybe I didn't eat enough and, it got me and whatever. So day comes and goes. I wake up the next day and my head is like super heavy and I'm like wobbly. And this persists for up until really like yesterday. So I went to urgent care. The guy was kind of like, I think, you're probably just stressed out. I think you're all right. You know what I mean? Like, if you want to take blood or whatever, we could do that. And so I called up that concierge doc that I work with and he was like, come in to see me. So I went and I see him and I tell him about give him the whole story. He's like, dude, you have stress-induced TMJ. It's right next to your ears. Your ears are what regulate the balance. You have like a light case of vertigo and you're stressing yourself the fuck out and you're like, you're beating yourself up and it's manifesting physically. And I'm walking around for days. I'm like, I think I have Parkinson's or some shit. I'm freaking out. I'm like, something's wrong with me. Something's wrong with me. And so, but it's wild. It's wild how like it's like you're like this coil and the coil just keeps tightening and tightening and tightening until there's no more tightening to go, and then it expands out into creates problems. And so I've been dealing with that this week and it's been nuts.
That's heavy, man. That's heavy because that's exactly what we were just talking about, where it's like, if there's this idea in society, like the David Goggins type, the Marine drill sergeant type, where it's like, you got to power through. It's like, no. You can power through when you're in basic training. But if you try and, to get through whatever it is they do, but if you try and do that consistently, it's like running a car engine in the red line without changing the oil. You're going to blow the freaking engine. Yeah. Mental toughness has nothing to do with it. You're going to blow the engine.
Everybody's gonna pop. You know what I mean? It doesn't mean
you're going to pop.
Doesn't mean you're going to die. You know what I mean? It just means that like your body is going to, I mean, if you keep it up, eventually, I guess you're going to die sooner than you should.
Yeah, you're going to die because it's aging you.
Yeah, but your body's going to
ages you, man. You look at people, look at the pictures of, presidents when they go in and then 4 years later
when they come out,
dude. That's stress, man. And then it ages them. It's like So no, man, when we look at like wellness, like when I deal with people on losing weight, I find that the number one issue with them is stress, because they're using food. They're dysregulated. They don't feel comfortable in their own body. Why? Because they have too much energy that hasn't been dissipated. And so then you use, as a coping mechanism, some people lean on food. And listen, we've all been there, right? Chocolate is amazing when you're stressed. It's amazing. Ice cream, whatever it is, that all of a sudden when you realize you have this, you don't need to eat. It's the energy. You need to dissipate that energy. So
it's just the dopamine hit. It's like as soon as the sugar hits you and it's like, and then you feel like shit immediately afterwards.
That's right. It's like crack. You're like, you feel great and then you feel like shit, like immediately. So yeah. And so, a program, a holistic program that will have long-term success, you have to deal with your energy. it has to incorporate and deal with your energy every single day. Like, because we build up in our natural lives, unless you're living on an island, where you don't do anything and you just go to the beach every day, which no one lives like that I know, you're going to have stress, and you've got to have a plan in place. You have to have a plan in place where you learn the mental discipline to understand and recognize when an event is starting to trigger stress, and then detach, even though you're not going to leave the situation, just to recognize that it's happening and then detach from that. That's what Mushin mind and, the samurai and all that mind, no mind is all about. It's like when I feel my body's this bubbling up, I try and say, okay, I need to detach and just observe all of this happening and not be emotional about it. So you have that component of it, which is the recognition of it happening and the prevention of excess energy building up. But then you're going to get it in, inevitably. You got to be like, what am I going to do every single day? Yoga, breathing, working out, jiu-jitsu, whatever it is, man. Ice bath. I got a friend who's addicted to ice baths now, because every single day, if he doesn't get it, he's freaking the F out.
Ice baths are nice. But I think, the root, and there's tons of stuff out there. The root of all of it is the traumas, is the definitions, is the way you grew up, is the value that you assign to things or don't assign to things. And like, that's where the real deep work comes in. It's like being able to, unlearn a lot of what you've learned, to strip away value from things that you've given value to. And that's hard. That's hard because it's like, at least with me, like, there are a lot of things that are like I often say, like, a lot of my blessings are also my curses. Like the things that I excel at and my talents, like the other side of a lot of those things are also where a lot of the trouble stems
like what?
from.
Give me an example.
Like, being super proactive and energetic and adventurous leads to not being able to sit still, equating sitting still to losing, dying, not making progress. I think there's a level of, being so drawn to achievement, but then also, having, worrying about how it makes other people feel and not being able to separate, Like, and there's just a lot of, like you talk about, attachment to things that are just programmed. Like we were talking about the kid who jumps on the table, And like, we're programmed to say, no, kids shouldn't do that in restaurants. But, it's layer upon layer upon layer of that stuff on how you view yourself, how you were viewed from your parents when you were a child, how you incorporated all that, and it's complex. And no doubt, physical activity. And because like what's great about ice baths, what's great about jiu-jitsu, what's great about working out and things like, or even just like, walking out the door and walking around the block when you're in a bad mood. Mm-hmm. Like, what's great about all that stuff is that it's low stakes. You don't have to, like, I think there's a lot of people that aren't even aware of the shit that I'm talking about the traumatic, psychological, but like all of the stuff, the physical stuff, like, it's slow. You just get out and do that and it's going to make you feel better. But the real work, once you get past, having, because I do all of that shit, but yet, I have TMJ shutting down my central nervous system and I'm wobbling around like I got Parkinson's disease at 40, Like, so, it runs deeper. I mean, thank God that I do the stuff that I do, because if I didn't, maybe I'd be 300 pounds and, ready for a heart attack or something by now,
Yeah. It's crazy that, you bring up a really good point about stillness and how learning to be still is such for some people, for some of us. And sometimes, I'm a lifelong meditator. And even for me, if I have too much energy built up, it becomes very difficult to sit. And some people who are in that constant state of like grinding, they sit down and it becomes like, what do you feel when you sit down, when you try and meditate or you try and be still? What do you feel when you're just quiet and just trying to be still?
I'm a long time meditator on and off. So like I have kind of gotten the mechanics of meditating, and I'm very aware of when my mind is active and then when I'm able to really just concentrate on my breath and let it go. But my therapist said something to me that was really cool, and I wish I would have wrote it down. I'm going to try to kind of paraphrase what he said. But he said, you confuse surrender. Like you have a hard time reconciling surrender with like losing, like surrender and like defeat. Like sometimes surrender is the only way forward. But surrender doesn't mean that, it's over. Surrender doesn't mean you're dead. Surrender doesn't mean you're trapped. Surrender doesn't mean, you're weak and you have given up control. And he said, you have a deep flaw in your programming to where you equate surrender to like, how you view yourself.
To losing. Yeah, to shame and losing.
To giving up. He's like, you equate surrender to giving up. And it's not necessarily that. Sometimes the only thing to do is surrender. Sometimes the only way to peace. And he said that to me and it like sent a shockwave through me. And it was like, it was like, yeah, man, you're hitting on it. I don't know where to press the button to turn that thing off, but that's it.
It's I opened one of the chapters in the Zen protocol that I'm writing right now or finishing up. And I talk about a story that a client told me. I don't know if I told you this story or not, but about how he almost drowned in the water in Mexico. And he was out there swimming and there were a few of them and this riptide and the waves came and he's getting pulled out and the girls are screaming and he can't help them. And, he's just like, oh my God, I'm going to die. And, a lifeguard comes out and I think grabs one of the girls, but can't get to him. And he's like, well, this is it, man. I mean, he's like going under, he's like sucking water.
Yeah.
Waves are coming. And he finally was just like, fuck it, man. I'm going to die. I got to let go. And he just relaxed and all of a sudden just felt this most blissful experience of just like, wow, I feel so good right now.
Surrender.
He surrendered and just said, whatever's going to happen is going to happen. The riptide took him out and then took him sideways to the beach. And then he was out of the riptide and swam back easily.
Well, but that's it, man. And that's where my cables cross. My cables cross at two things are simultaneously true. Is you do have agency in this life and you should exercise it. And the more proactive you are about your life, you can influence it for the better. Mm-hmm. But simultaneously true is whatever's going to happen is going to happen. And you might not have
free will. You probably don't have free will in many circumstances in which you're overstressed.
And if you could just let it go and just let it be and let the river flow, that's all that energy that you're not using fighting yourself. And that's right. That's where my cables cross. That's where that's where when I look in the mirror, I see a guy who makes it happen, who that's who I am. Like I make it happen. Like, oh, we got to get we can't do it. No, we're going to do it. We're going to figure this fucking out. We're not going to give up. We're going to make it go and we're not going to stop. But then that guy suffers greatly because sometimes the river's just got to run. and you can't make you can't make it run any faster than it's gonna go. And you just gotta be okay with that. And that is,
and I think it's like that oftentimes, because I think life is a river, and the reality is that, you can't swim against it. You cannot. You can try. You can tell yourself you're making progress. You might be able to swim a little bit sideways, but you got to be able to read. I think wisdom comes from learning how to read. If you look at successful entrepreneurs, the reality is there's so much luck involved.
Yeah.
There's so much fucking luck involved. It's not even funny. And any one of them that who's made it, however you define that, who will not tell you that in business, because you're operating in a macro system, right? You're operating in this ocean with all these currents. And sometimes you can catch a current that just sweeps you right up, Malcolm Gladwell's
tipping point.
seminal work. Yeah, where he talks about, he goes through the luck that was involved with, point after point out. Who talked about the Beatles, right? They just happened to be there at the perfect time.
Yeah, all of the variables.
All the variables. Bill Gates just happened to be, born in Seattle, where there was and go to school where there was one of the only computers, and he learned how to program on that because he, came from a wealthy family and he was given these opportunities. Steve Jobs, same thing, where if you look at someone who's really successful, there's so much luck involved with the way things lined up. And then you can look at other people who, got into something and were hardworking and smart and worked their ass off and ended up failing because the tide was going against them. Yeah. And it's like, that's just the way it is. And so it's important to realize, to recognize, I think even on a micro scale, where on a day basis, like if I have a day, I learned this like when I was 30, is that if I have a day where everything is going wrong, by come like 1 o'clock, I'm like, done. I'm cutting everything off. I'm out. I'm not fighting this anymore because I'm not getting anywhere. Tomorrow, I know I might as well keep my sanity and chill out, because tomorrow I know I'm going to wake up and it's going to be a totally different energy. Totally different.
I'm not good at that. Not yet. Maybe by the time I'm 50.
It's hard, man. It's hard. You got to recognize when you're in a riptide is not easy, but it is the importance of it is because when we're in that place and we're fighting the riptide, we're causing back what we were talking about, the most intense amount of stress on ourselves, right? And so we're fighting the riptide. We're getting more tired than we should be. We're getting more stressed. We're getting more anxious. It all just builds up and, contributes to ill health.
Yeah.
In Ayurveda, it's like ancient Indian, like healing, medicinal and healing and all that. The whole notion of Ayurveda is that stress is the killer. Stress kills everything. That's what it is. And so it's important from that standpoint to understand all the different types of stresses. We have environmental stresses, right? We have mental stresses, like what you were talking about, based on PTSD. When we're children, we're sponges, right? Very hard. It's, trauma doesn't come as easy to us. We're a lot more resilient because we don't have the plasticity of the brain that we did when we were children. But things that happen when we're children, maybe we're left alone for excess periods of time, and it creates, attachment anxiety. We're not even aware of it. We don't even remember it.
Yeah, you don't really. It takes a while for you to start to judge. Once you start judging yourself, then everything changes. When you're a kid, you don't judge yourself as much. You don't see yourself, externally. You don't think about as much about how other people view me and like what are my interactions. Once that starts to happen, then that's when it begins. That's like, what's a really funny thing, and I'm sure you've known people like this, like smoking weed, right? I have, always known people throughout my life to where like when they were a kid, they were in high school and college, and then college is when it really started to change. And they stopped smoking weed in college because all of a sudden, like when you were 16 and you'd smoke a joint, you and your friends, you'd laugh your ass off and eat a bag of Cheetos, and you'd listen to music and it would be great. Now you're in college and you got to finish your term paper, and you gotta meet that requirement or your parents are gonna be pissed. And now all of a sudden you start to have these external stresses. You smoke a joint, you freak the fuck out. But it's because, all that external stuff that now you're letting in. But the substance didn't change, and I know I've known so many people that have stopped smoking pot or, any kind of cannabis related stuff because of that. And it's a perfect example. It's like cannabis heightens your senses. But if your senses
and it kind of makes you go inward, right?
Yeah.
So you're like inside of your consciousness, right? And
but if you're
like,
blocked, if you're completely wound up so super tight about, how other people see you, and it just exacerbates that. And you're not, having this, good experience. And it's interesting. And it's all because of eventually you reach this point in the world to where like the illusion gets shattered.
And it goes back to that. I think it goes back to the still.
Wait, maybe it's the illusion doesn't get shattered. The illusion descends, because the illusion is that all this shit means anything. You're really in the truth when you're a child. Then there's no illusion. You're
just in the moment.
You're in the moment.
You're not self-conscious. That's the problem. Like with so that programming right there, when you have like a really judgmental parent, right, is it creates that second guessing all the time inside of yourself, right?
I grew up that way, man. I have that big.
So that's what I think. And a lot of times that voice and that, being judged all the time, it creates in the mind, they call them samskaras, in the consciousness, in the subconscious, and we're not even aware of it. We don't know why we have it. We don't know. But like you're saying, it drives everything, because when that was happening, you had this plasticity of the brain where it wasn't okay to just be. Because if you were just being you and enjoying life and doing whatever, you were getting yelled at and being judged. And it creates this thing in the subconscious that you're not even aware of. That's why I'm very, very critical of people who are like, I don't believe in therapy and I don't want to talk about my feelings and all. It's like, dude, you're not wanting to do the work is what it means. It's like not wanting to go work out. It's like saying, no, I don't want to. You're afraid.
You're
it's
afraid.
Uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable.
And I find that there's so many people are so afraid that the concept of admitting that they might be afraid is, forget about being afraid to go in there and do the thing. They're afraid to admit that they're afraid.
Yeah.
Powerful.
Very common thing, especially with men. Especially with men, man. I hear it all the time. And it's like, listen, man, so what that creates in people, in us, all of us, is that we no longer, it takes away our ability to be comfortable just being, right? We're talking about meditation and how uncomfortable it can be. We cannot allow ourselves, we no longer have that ability to just be. And so now what we have to do is that thing in our head is like, you have to externalize and go do things Go do things. Go
be productive.
Go earn. Go work. Go be productive. Go do whatever it is so that you can earn your right to feel okay about yourself. That's fucked up. That is the most unhealthy thing in the world.
And you know where I suffer the most? Where I suffer the most with this specific topic is when I'm home in my house. When I'm home, and it's bad because it's like I don't know what to do because like, you know, I grew up with a father who was entrepreneurial and he, you know what I mean? Like, you got to
earn your keep, right?
You got to produce. And when you're
Eat
home,
what you kill. Yeah.
When you're home, you're not producing.
No.
And it has been so difficult for me, you know, since my children have been born, to be at peace in my own house. And it's like a deep programming that is very challenging. And, you know, none of it is like intellectual. You know what I mean? None of it's
you're not thinking these things.
None of it is like, oh, you know, this is boring because I got kids and I'm not having fun. It's just not being able to get into a state of calm and peace and just be. It's always in a state of, okay, what should I be doing? You know what I mean? Like, am I not a good father because I'm not teaching my kid how to play guitar on Saturday? That's what I should be doing. Or I'm taking him with me to Jiu-Jitsu, you know, in the morning and I'll overthink it all and I'll just overthink it to death into a paralysis and do nothing and just suffer. You know, and it's wild. It's wild.
So heavy. It's so cool. So how does it affect your raising your kids? Do you find yourself doing the same thing in pushing them and feeling this need to push them?
No, I think I've been successful at not so far. I mean, you know, my oldest son is 10 and the next guy up is about to be 9 next week or in 2 weeks. And I don't think that I am in any sort of way like pushing them to, you know, be anything or do anything, but I am suffering internally. You know what I mean? I'm not at peace. I'm not relaxed. I'm not enjoying the process. You know, that is definitely the case. We're getting heavy.
I had the same thing when I was raising my daughter. It was very difficult. And my only regrets in life are really, in regards to parenting, are really about just pushing her, you know, and just not letting her be. And feeling like at that time, because I was a very young parent, I was like 25, I was 26. And when she was born. And so I just felt like I have to push her to mold her, but they're going to become their own kids anyways.
Yeah, the obsession. A lot of parents are obsessed with like giving the kids an edge so that they can be a star or, you know, super successful. And I don't believe that's the way. I don't believe that's the way. I think like
go ahead.
I think what I do think that I do well is by virtue of, like we were talking about before, about living life passionately and hobbies and the things that I do. Like, they see that their dad does these things because he loves these things. And I think that there's power in that. I think that they're, you know what I mean? They're growing up in an environment where their dad does all these things. And I think that they're naturally going to gravitate to some of them.
I think that's everything. I think that all we should do is provide, you know, at the end of the day, we can't let our kids just fail out of school.
No.
But, so we do have to have some kind of structure. Kids need structure, right?
Yep.
They need that. Love is structure. We need to give ourselves structure. I'm very big on that. I need to give myself structure, because if I love myself and I care about myself, then I'm going to provide. And structure is discipline. So we do need to provide structure, but at the same time, all we can do is just be passionate about our own lives. And then if they find something they're passionate about, then we just support it. Oh, really?
Yeah.
You like skateboarding? Great. I'll bring you to a skate park whenever you want to go. You
Yeah.
like, whatever. You like art? Okay, well, then we're going to follow art to the natural conclusion of your passion. Maybe
Yep.
you'll be the next, Michelangelo. I don't know. It doesn't, who knows? And so that's all we can really do. You like science? Good. I'm going to support you in science. You like football? I'll support, I'm going to support you in whatever it is. You like mathematics? Great. Well, here's a tutor, here's whatever it is.
Yeah.
But not every kid's going to like everything. Some kids are going to hate school. Some kids are going to,
Yeah. Yeah.
It's luck of the draw, man. You get what you get and you don't throw a fit. It's like whatever your kid is, your kid is. You got to just love them and accept them for who they are so they don't grow up, like we grew up.
Yeah. Yeah. Or at least a little better.
But I think it's fascinating, when you think about how, difficult, how this, as we're talking about this, it really is interesting that it takes away our ability to be still, to be quiet, to learn to just be, no matter what the condition of the body is. We'll have to do a complete episode on meditation, and because it really is something I think a lot of people don't realize, that really meditation is just being. That's really it. You're just trying to figure out and get comfortable with just being.
No agenda, no plan.
No judgment. You're not supposed to feel serenity. You're not supposed to feel calm. You're not supposed to feel enlightened. You're supposed to just be. Mm-hmm. And that's hard. That's the hardest thing for us, because we're so trained. Our brains are so trained to externalize and go do things and get on the phone and get, watch a video.
In this technological era with the phones and stuff, it's like, it's next to impossible. I mean, everything is distracting you all of the time. And even like the personal relationships that you have, because now those personal relationships are now all converted to text messages, and somebody thinks of you, they text you, and then you text them back, and then somebody has a problem and they call you, and it's just constant. It's constant. There's never any time to just be, like you're saying, and process, and just kind of and and I think now, because of the technology, now we're rewiring our brains to just want more and more and more. We want communication. We want to know what's going on. I haven't heard from you. You know what I mean? You haven't texted me all day. What's going on? You don't love me anymore. You know what I mean? Like, Like all sorts. It's we're rewiring our brains, to be drug addicts.
We're so clingy, we're so clingy and attached to information and distraction and stimulation. It's clingy it makes you feel pathetic, and it really is pathetic. Yeah. And we all have it, and it's not acceptable, right? It's not healthy.
It's not.
And we all have it. It's so crazy, and we all are acknowledging how unhealthy it is.
But we haven't figured out how to take a step yet. Hopefully, I don't know. Hopefully somebody is going to figure this out at least a little bit, I mean, it's human nature to want to be high, to get the dopamine. It's human nature, but we're overloaded.
Yeah, but how does it affect, we talk about, transhumanism and Vitruvian 5000 and the evolution of the species. How does it, when Elon Musk is, and other companies too are, developing Neuralinks to connect us at all times, right? I mean, that's ultimately the goal. So you're going to be connected at all fucking times to the internet,
Well, it's going to rewire.
Sounds like fucking torture, dude.
It does sound like torture, and I think we've kind of touched on this before, when we get on AI and we get on transhumanism and we get on, in order for any of that stuff to not completely destroy humanity, we're going to have to rewrite the social contracts. Like the things that we're judgmental about, like the Judeo-Christian, monotheistic, schools of thought, philosophical, based on morality, like that, like there's no world in where that shit's going to endure and then Neuralink is going to be ubiquitous. Like it's impossible because privacy is going to go away. People
Dude,
are going to.
How about the fact that people now are following people in their household all day long on where are you? They're looking at the location.
Oh yeah.
Family Finder or whatever it is.
I was talking to some guys about that the other day, and they're like, "Yeah, of course I do it." And I'm like, "What?"
I know.
I'm like, that's just not natural. You know what I mean? Like,
it's
nobody,
not natural.
Nobody.
I need to see at all times where you are. How clingy is that?
Yeah, nobody should have to. You shouldn't have to know where anyone is 24 hours a day, and no one should have to know where you are 20, regardless of And there's like, what do you have? Do you have something to hide? It's like no, it's not about that. It's just about like it's overload of information. Like, what are you trying to solve? You're trying to control everything, and you're never going to be able to control everything.
That's it. I think that's why the brain, wants all that information at all times, because it gives us this sense of control, and ultimately
false sense of control.
False sense of control. Fuck, it's so heavy,
and we're wired up.
That's what's crazy. We're wired.
We want it. We want it. We want to solve problems. We want to have control. We want to know, do you really feel this way about me? We want to know, is it worthwhile for me to make this investment? You know what I mean? We don't want,
we can't deal with uncertainty. That's uncertainty is the nature of life. And
the only certainty is uncertainty.
That's right. Chaos and uncertainty. Pema Chodron, who's very, very famous meditator, Buddhist meditator, she's like, there's this great quote that I have on my desktop. It's like, listen, man, if you think you're going to control and you'll eliminate all uncertainty and chaos, you signed up for the wrong universe, because that is not the reality,
No.
Not reality. And so that's another part of not being able to just be, because it's like, I got to control everything, micromanage what's going on here, what's going on there, what am I doing there? It's all the minds need to control everything.
And then, getting back to what we were talking about before about like, trauma and what's interesting to me is that like, for myself, there are things in my life to where dealing with uncertainty, no problem. Like in business, entrepreneurial, and like that kind of stuff. Like there are aspects of my life where like I could walk through, the bombs raging and not knowing whether or not we're going to make it, and I'm okay. And then there are other areas more when it has to deal with like me as an individual and like validating elements, that dealing with uncertainty can be crippling. And it's so interesting how like some things, no big deal. Other things, and then, I could be talking to you and you could have a completely inverse set of those variables. You could be somebody who, wouldn't take a financial risk ever in their life, but then could really give two fucks about what anybody thinks about them, and is completely fine with, certain, areas of like, social, constructs and that's fascinating to me, because that's all based on the things you grew up with, the values that you assigned to certain things or that were assigned to you.
Yeah. Well, I think that, at the end of the day, progress in all of this comes with awareness. And I think for me, the greatest opportunity or technique or whatever you want to call it, technology that I have to see my patterns is, we talked about journaling, but for me, it is being still and it is meditating. And the more that I progress, if you want to call it that, whatever you want to call it, the more it comes from when I recognize, like the other day I was meditating and I realized that I was feeling a little bit of anxiety about something. And I was like, whoa, this is just at one level, like at level 1 out of like 100, let's say. And I'm just recognizing it. And as soon as I recognized it, during meditation, I went into it. I didn't push it away, because what I find is that when I feel uncomfortable about something and I start pushing it away, I'm giving it more energy. Yeah. And so what I find is, okay, I have a craving for whatever it is. If I have a craving, that is something I need to recognize and deal with it immediately. What is this? Why am I feeling? Why do I want to go eat food? Why do I want to, whatever it is? And at least if I'm like, okay, I'm going to go eat food, I want to do it consciously. I want to be conscious and not be acting subconsciously. And for me, that's why the meditation is so important, because I'm able to see these things earlier. And I think that is really, whatever you want to call it, spirituality, whatever it is, to me, that's all it is. It's about recognizing that it's happening at an early stage and then not pushing it away and going into it and then letting it dissipate. Maybe I won't give into the craving. Maybe I will, but I'll do it consciously. Yes. Maybe I'm uncomfortable with this situation. I need to talk to someone about it and not push it away like I used to do,
Well, it's like recognizing that the house is on fire when you're walking down the street towards it, rather than when you're sitting at the kitchen table and the walls are on fire around you, And
your skin's starting to singe.
And
that goes back to what we were saying with your doctor, right?
Yeah.
He's like, you got TMJ. He's basically saying, your house is on fire.
Yep.
You've allowed it to get to the point where, where you've got now vertigo.
Yep.
What's next? A stroke, a heart attack, you know what I mean? Colitis, some autoimmune disease. But we all do that. That's the path, man. That's why these I tell people that too, is like these conversations and listening to people talk about these things and reading about them is very important, because, I've said it before, I'll say it again. It's probably one of the most important principles for me, for growth, is that I can't see my own eyes without this screen or without a mirror. I need mirrors or screens to reflect back at me what my eyes look like. It's the same thing with the mind. I don't see the subconscious patterns of my mind unless I'm sitting here and I'm having a conversation with you, or I'm reading a book, or I'm doing the work and meditating, whatever. I just can't see it. But once we start to see it, that doctor was a mirror for you, right?
Yeah. Well, even this conversation, you know what I mean? Like I said, I've been stressed out for a while now and dealing with a lot of stuff, and just, having this conversation, and even like I'm looking at the monitor in front of me and I'm seeing myself, and we're talking about this, and even just a very little bit, it provides this lightening of the load to where it's like,
I know,
it's all right, man. You know what I mean? Like, what's up. You know what I mean?
You know what's up.
You're what's going on. Yeah.
You're not alone, because what happens, the mind makes us think that we're the only ones going through this. Right? You're the only, and you start to feel alone, and you start to feel overburdened, or
that you have to solve the problem, You have to solve the problem. You have to figure it out. You have to have an answer. There needs to be a reason why this person said this thing or did this thing. There needs to be some sort of an explanation why this is happening. And looking at myself saying this right now, talking to you on the fucking internet, it's like, no, there doesn't need to be a reason.
Mm-mm.
You don't need to solve it right now. The clock is still going to tick forward anyway. And you know what I mean? Like, and just even a little bit helps.
That's right. Because what happens, Jesse, is that, sometimes the riptide that we're caught in is in our minds.
100%. It's only there.
And it's the energy of the body. And sometimes we need to, like we were saying, be like, all right, man, I got to stop. I'm exhausted. I just got to let it all go. go,
Whatever
do
it is you do.
jiu-jitsu, jump in the hot tub, do a sauna, ice bath, whatever it is that gets us to just relax in the riptide, dissipate, let that energy of the riptide go. Then we can, when it calms down, then we can, and our energy goes down. Sometimes just waking up the next day, I just feel better, It's like,
most of the time I do, you know what I mean? Like I have a friend who's a business guy too. And he said he said his wife said something about him. And I thought this was very interesting because I identify with this big time. He goes, my wife told me I have two personalities. There's there's you at 8 a.m. and there's you at 8 p.m. And I like the 8 a.m. guy the best. You know what I mean? Like, and like, cause you wake up and you're like, all right, another shot, man. Another shot. You know what I mean? Let's do this. But as the day wears on, it wears you down and you feed in to all the bullshit. And then, but just waking up the next day, you're like, all right, I'm still here. Still on 2 feet, I'm
going to be all right. Right. That's awesome, man. That's awesome. Wow. Yeah. Well, maybe next time we'll do one on meditation and kind of talk about that. Cause I find that it's something that people have so many misconceptions about when, the reality is it's really just science of the mind. That's all it fucking is, and to dispel some of those misconceptions actually goes a long way in helping people to incorporate it in their lives. Go ahead.
It's just a thing to make you feel better, and everybody wants to feel better.
And to give you control, or to give you that awareness, But yeah, we'll do that. What's anything you've been watching? Anything that's new?
No, nothing right now. I'm still working my way through the Lord of the Rings. Ring of
Dude,
Power.
you know what I've been watching? I started watching. It's actually pretty cool. It's funny. It's cool. I like things that oftentimes that are just fun, And there's this new on Apple TV. There's this new show with Vince Vaughn called Bad Monkey, and it's very Big Lebowski-esque. Okay. It's cool. It's cool. He's
Check
a
that
complete
out.
fuck up.
Great. He's great.
He's great. He's a complete, fuck up of a character. So it's
and
great.
we all identify. We all identify with that guy. You know what I mean? We all identify with the complete fuck up.
Exactly. It makes you go, oh, okay, I'm all right.
Yeah.
So yeah, check that out if you get a chance. And then cool. I still haven't watched. I'm been meaning to, and I just haven't had a chance. Hopefully now I'm going to get this TV set up in my room. But I have not watched Mad Max, the new Mad Max Furiosa. Have you seen it?
That was pretty good.
Was it good? I want to see it.
It's pretty good. Yeah.
I love Fury Road. I know it's not as good as Fury Road, but I want to watch it.
It wasn't as good as Fury Road. The Tom Hardy character, but
I love Tom Hardy, man. He's so great.
He's
a jiu-jitsu guy.
Well, so my professor takes care of him security, and every time they're together, they roll jiu-jitsu. He was just in Vegas with him, and they were training at the UFC Institute.
Wow,
out there, and they've talked about when he comes through New York, if he makes his way, he's going to come over here.
I'm coming.
And he said Tom Hardy is a solid role. He's not a celebrity jiu-jitsu guy.
I've seen him compete. Yeah, he's solid, man.
He's a solid role, and he's he's relatively my age. He's a purple belt. I'm a purple belt. Hopefully not for too much longer. I'm hoping one day to get a shot out.
Are you calling him out?
I might be. Tom,
calling out Bane. Calling out Bane. Calling out Bane, man. That might not end well.
Might not.
No, that's awesome. That's awesome. All right. Until next week, man. You have a good weekend, and we'll talk then.
All right, man. Cool.